Thank God.
Something is wrong in deep space, and it didn't begin in the present. It started decades earlier, inside the hidden walls of the Soviet space program, where engineers weren't just building rockets, they were building ideas that were never meant to be fully understood in their own time. And now, in For All Mankind, those forgotten decisions are beginning to echo back from the darkness. Warning, spoilers ahead. A dead spacecraft drifting near Saturn suddenly comes back online after decades of silence. No warning, no human command, no distress signal. Just a cold, mechanical awakening in the void of space. And then, something appears on the screen that changes everything. A name. Nikulov. At first, it looks like corruption in the system, a fragment of old Soviet code left behind in a forgotten machine. But the longer it runs, the more intentional it feels. Because Mars-94 isn't just rebooting randomly, it's responding. It's recognizing something or someone. And that someone, according to a growing theory, is Sergei Nikulov, the same Sergei who stood at the center of Soviet space ambition. The same man who worked closely with Margot Madison across ideological borders. The same mind that never thought in short-term missions or simple engineering problems, but in long-range systems designed to outlive even their creators. And inside the reboot sequence, there is a line of code that changes the entire meaning of what we are seeing. A detection message, GW 3.060451, Nicolov loading gravitational waves. Ripples in spacetime created by some of the most violent events in the universe. Colliding stars, black holes, cosmic disturbances that travel across billions of light years. But in this theory, they are not just natural phenomena. They are signals, a language the universe speaks without words. And Sergei Nikolov, according to the Star City connection, may have been building systems designed specifically to understand that language long before anyone else even considered it possible. Because in Star City, the Soviet space program is not just a race for power or prestige. It is a long-term machine of hidden research, secret directives, and scientific ambition that stretches far beyond politics or timelines. A system built on the belief that space exploration is not about arriving quickly, but about preparing instruments that can survive long enough to witness something important when the universe finally reveals it. Which is why Mars-94 begins to feel less like a failed spacecraft and more like a dormant instrument. A machine designed to sleep through decades of silence until the universe itself delivers the correct signal to wake it up, not a malfunction, not an accident. A scheduled awakening triggered by conditions no one on Earth fully understood when it was built. And that awakening only happens near Saturn, a location that feels too precise to be coincidence. Because Mars-94 doesn't activate randomly in deep space. It activates at a boundary point, where gravitational forces shift and cosmic interference becomes measurable in ways older Soviet systems may have predicted but never fully explained. If Sergei's theories were correct, then Mars-94 was never meant to explore Mars alone. It was meant to listen to the universe itself. And that changes everything about what we think we're witnessing. Because at the same time, humanity is already facing another discovery that shifts everything. Kelly Baldwin's finding on Titan. A hidden ecosystem beneath alien ice. Bioluminescent life proving, without question, that Earth is not the only place where life exists. But discoveries like that don't close questions, they open them. If life exists on Titan, then what else is out there? And, more importantly, does anything out there already know we exist? This is where Mars-94 stops feeling like a passive relic and starts feeling like a receiver. A machine built not just to observe space, but to interpret it. To translate patterns in space-time that may not even be visible as light or sound, but as structure itself. And when the system displays the name Nikolov, it no longer feels like a glitch. It feels like continuation. As if the machine is still executing a process that began long before Sergei's death. Because Sergei Nikolov was never portrayed as someone working in isolation, his mind always moved in connection, especially with Margot Madison. Their relationship wasn't just emotional, it was intellectual synchronization. Shared equations, shared theories, shared impossible ideas. Which means if Mars-94 is truly running fragments of Sergei's logic, then Margot may be the only person alive capable of understanding what it is actually trying to say. But there is another possibility, even more unsettling. What if Mars-94 is not receiving a signal at all? What if it is transmitting one? A delayed message stored for decades, waiting for the exact moment the universe reaches the right condition to send it forward. In that interpretation, Saturn is not the destination, but the activation threshold, the point where silence finally becomes communication. And that idea fits too perfectly with what Star City has been building all along. A Soviet program built on long-term thinking, where systems are designed to outlive governments, ideologies, and even the people who created them, which makes Mars-94 feel less like a relic and more like completion. Not something broken, but something finished, and now active. And if that is true, then Sergei's final protocol may not just be about Mars-94, it may be about the way humanity understands space itself. Because once a machine built decades ago begins responding to gravitational signals we still don't fully understand, it forces a disturbing possibility into view. That we are not the first to try and decode the universe, and maybe not the first to leave something behind inside it. So Mars-94 becomes more than a spacecraft drifting near Saturn. It becomes a question suspended in deep space, a question that only activates when the universe itself is ready to answer. And somewhere inside that question, Sergei Nikolov may still be speaking, not through words, not through messages, but through a machine that never stopped listening. In the end, what makes the Mars-94 mystery so compelling isn't just the idea of a reactivated spacecraft, but what it represents across both For All Mankind and Star City. It suggests that nothing in this universe is ever truly isolated in time. Every decision, every experiment, and every hidden line of code may continue to exist long after the people who created them are gone. Sergei Nikulov's presence in this theory becomes less about one character and more about a legacy of thinking ahead of its time, where science was never limited to the present moment but stretched decades into the future. Mars-94, whether it is receiving or transmitting, becomes a symbol of that long-term vision, a machine that was never meant to stay silent forever. And as gravitational wave signals, Titan's discovery and Soviet-era ambitions begin to overlap, the boundary between both series starts to blur into a single narrative about humanity's search for meaning in the unknown. If the final protocol theory is even partially true, then the real mystery isn't what Mars-94 has awakened to, but what it has been waiting for all along. And in that silence between stars, one idea remains. Space may not be empty, and we may not be the first to listen. Don't forget to subscribe for more detailed breakdowns, deep theories, and ongoing analysis of For All Mankind and Star City.